Hi guys, I'm doing a follow-up video to the one I did a few days ago that describes how to use the poem to create, let's say, an asterisk that shows you specifically where the Homer Brown and the Blaze are going to be. A couple of people have asked me questions, and I'm going to try to clarify it here. And in order to do that, I'm going to discuss stanza 4, but only part of it, only part of the first sentence, because that's more important. I'm going to do so with a simple diagram, and I'm going to ignore the word if for now. And I'm also going to break out the contractions because it makes things more obvious. And also, you have to do that in order to diagram it. But it doesn't change the meaning, and it's not messing with the poem, of course. So let me create a diagram of this uh, first sentence in the first part of the second stanza minus the word if, because I'm not going to use that. So we have, if you have been wise and found the blaze. We don't need punctuation, doesn't matter in a sentence diagram. So the subject here in this part is you. We have you, okay? And then we're going to take there's multiple verbs here. Basically, there's two verb phrases. There's have been wise and have found the blaze. So there's two verb phrases being joined by a conjunction and. So we need to break that out in the diagram because there's not normally what you would do is you would put the verb on this line, but we have more than one verb, so we need to do it slightly differently. So what I'm going to do is put the auxiliary verb on there, the helping verb, have. So we have you, have. Okay, so the subject, and here's the helping verb. Okay, there's going to be a little bit more to this, so I'm going to shrink this up a little bit. And I'm going to add one of these constructs. And I'm going to drag the and down there because that's what the conjunction is doing here in this case. Okay, so we have, forget about the word if again. You have been doing something and doing something else. Okay, so this already kind of sets the past tense up too, because of the auxiliary verb have is past tense. We have done something, right? So let's take the first part the first one that you've done, which is been. Okay, so if you have been, okay, and then the second one, if you have found. All right. So if you have found, now there's two different things going on here. Let me the first one, okay. Well, let me finish it first. Kind of getting off track here. I was looking at my notes for a second. Uh, Sorry, but I'm a kind of a perfectionist sometimes. Um, Let me do the top one first. Let's see. We'll put wise using that construct. Okay, down and found, it's slightly different because I'll explain in a minute. Found, okay, and the is just determiner, which blaze, the blaze. Okay, so that goes underneath there. Again, let me try to straighten out. Okay, so that's a diagram of that first sentence. And basically what you have there is if, forget about if, you have been wise and you have found the blaze, okay? And there's two different things going on. And have is acting as just a helping verb in both cases. So we can keep it down here. Normally the entire verb would be down here. Like if it didn't have the conjunction, you would do you have been wise. It would be on one line, just like it is here. This would be down here. And if it was only the bottom part, it would be on there. Now, if you notice, these are slightly different. This one has a backslash before wise, and this one has a pipe after found and before the blaze. And the reason for that is the first one up here is acting as an adjective. Okay, this phrase "have been wise" is acting as an adjective, and the adjective is modifying the subject. So in other words, it's saying you have been wise. So the subject have been wise. That's why the it has a backslash here, because wise is not talking about the verb, it's talking about the subject itself. The subject has been wise. Okay. But the second one, have, is also being used the same way, but found is different. Okay. Found is not like been. Found is a transitive verb that's describing an action. Been, this is actually a state of being, a state of mind. If you have been wise, okay, this one is an action. You found or find or searched. This is an action, and it has a direct object, and the direct object is a blaze. Which blaze? The blaze. Okay. There's millions of blazes out there, but we're only interested in one. Okay. So think about think about this for a moment. I mean, just take a look at that and just think about it. Okay, you can pause it and look at it for a while, and then you're probably going to say, "Well, okay, Troy. So what the hell are you talking about? What's your point?" Well, my point is that, well, first of all, when you diagram things like this, which is the whole reason why I made my diagram series, I diagrammed the entire poem. And if you do go back and look at those videos, keep in mind that there may be some mistakes. And I don't think there's mistakes in the logic, but there might be mistakes in the way I use the symbols to create the diagram, because I was just learning it when I did those videos, and I tried to get it as accurate as I possibly could to get my point across. So now that you've done this, we have a very clear picture of what's going on. We have an adjective verb phrase, and down here we have an action verb phrase. So we got two different verbs, but that'll help you, because when you're looking up the definition of been, okay, you'll know which definition to use. And when you're looking at wise, you're going to use the adjective, okay, because that's what it is here. It's an adjective being used like a noun, okay. And then found, this is kind of the important one. And I want to first say, like I initially said at the start of the video, have is setting us into the past tense. So saying you have been wise. So you have been wise before we reach this part of the poem. Well, the same thing would apply here. It also puts all of this into past tense. And one of the things that people get screwed up on is, if you go to the dictionary and look up the word found, okay, what you're going to find is, of course, a lot of people can think that it's the past tense or past participle of find. Now, immediately, that sets the state of your mind to think that, well, while you're going through the poem, begin at where warm water salt, taking it and canyon down, yada yada, that you are going to find something. You're going to visually see something. Okay, you're going to locate the blaze. And like Forrest said, there's millions of blazes out there. People are wasting their time walking around looking for blazes. There's millions of them. Well, that's a huge hint that he gave you right there, that you're using the wrong definition of found. He doesn't need to use the past participle version. That means that this is just the past tense of find. How about if he's using one of these other definitions? Found equals to establish, to create, to set up, to establish the foundation or basis of something, to bring something into being, to set something up. Okay. Think about that. What did Forrest run? Forrest ran a foundry. What does a foundry do? Forrest would get blueprints from an artist. Forrest would take that and he'd create the mold and the wax or whatever. I don't know the exact process. And then he would basically make a statue out of it. When he made the poem, he knows that most people are probably going to look at this and get screwed up because of the tense change, and they're going to use thinking, they're going to in their mind automatically think this means find, and they're immediately going to visualize. Now, Forrest has been asked, is the blaze a physical thing? And yeah, it is. The blaze is on the ground. The problem again is that there's millions of them. Which one do we want? Well, the one that we want is the one that we found. So you can kind of read that line like this: if you have been wise and established the blaze, you know. So how do we establish the blaze? Well, one way we do that is go back and look at the video that I just did 2 days ago about the asterisk. I use the poem clues, beginning where warm water salt. Okay, I made a line from beginning where warm water salt to the canyon down. All right. Now the very next line has 4 clues in it, in my opinion. Okay. From there, it's no place for the meek. The end is ever drawing nigh. There'll be no paddle up your creek. Just heavy loads and water high. But if you notice, there's a semicolon in there. And the meaning of the semicolon is setting a relationship between the sentence prior to it and the sentences after it. Okay. Theoretically, you could replace that semicolon with a period, and grammatically, it'll still be correct. The problem is by removing the semicolon, you're removing the relationship between those 4 lines. All right. So basically, I drew 3 lines. One from the one where he says, beginning warm water salt, taken in the county down, not far, but too far to walk. And then you notice he stops using the word it. He says, put in below the home of Brown. The next time he uses it is he says, from there, it is. From there, it, okay? It is. No place for me. The end is ever drawing nigh. And then he has a semicolon. There'll be no paddle up the creek and heavy loads and water high. So when you work all of that out, those 4 points end up being around, let's say, the same area that you're in. They don't necessarily have to be. And I'm not even saying that there might be, it might not be an asterisk. It might not look, you might form a different shape. I'm not really discussing a solve here. But the point is, if you were to take that semicolon, well, actually, if you were to draw those 3 lines, down to the canyon, and then the end's ever drawing nigh, and no paddle up your creek, and so on, draw those lines. They're all going to intersect in only one spot. Those 2 lines are going to form an X that intersects the first line that you drew. Okay. And if they don't all intersect in the same exact spot, that basically means one of your clues are wrong, because if you got all the clues right, they're all going to intersect. And what happens is, if you take that intersection and imagine that the semicolon is there, okay? If you work radiate out, like from the semicolon, and you go, no place for the meek, the end is ever drawing nigh, there'll be no paddle up the creek, just heavy loads and water high. They almost come out of there like a compass rose, being north, south, east, and west, okay? So they radiate out from the semicolon. And then, of course, the very next stanza is this what we're looking at here. So the thing is, when you've done that, you've just found the blaze. You used Forrest's blueprint, just like he would have used in a foundry, and you established, you found, you created, you brought into notice the blaze. All right, and essentially, that gives meaning to put in below the home of Brown, because the home of Brown is going to be that spot that you located. Okay. You'll know that when you solve the poem, because the place it ends up pointing to, it'll make sense to you. Brown will make sense. You'll know why it's capitalized, and why it's a pronoun. And I put this one out there to try to kind of explain the parts that I didn't talk about there, how, or the reason why I constructed the asterisk. Okay. We got people walking around looking for blazes. Like Forrest said, there's millions of them. But the one that we want is the one that we establish or found with the poem. So my point to all this is that, don't get discouraged in trying to learn grammar, because regardless of what anybody tells you, grammar is extremely important. And don't, if anybody tells you anything otherwise, just laugh at them and walk away, because they're wrong. Forrest only had words, and using words, you had to paint a picture. So you can bet that he knows the grammar. And the point is, I'm not looking to correct his poem or change his poem. But if you don't understand grammar, number one, you don't understand how to read the poem. Number two, you can't see where he bent the rules to draw emphasis to certain parts of the poem. I'm trying to read that poem exactly the way Forrest wants us to read it. And that's what everybody should be doing. And it makes a lot more sense than spending 150 random boots on the ground trips that are based on zero logic. And you're walking up and down streams when you should be precisely walking through the chest. Well, you're not going to get that precision without doing this kind of stuff. So I'm trying to help you out. And anyway, give it a shot. You know, it's not going to hurt. It's definitely going to help. And that's about all I have to say. Peace.